I wanted to do a quick audio to check in with our Patreon subscribers and also just in general to explain that we moved servers, so we didn't have access to our creative cultural blog and commentary, which this is our creative platform. So that's why, and there are many reasons why we haven't been able to do creative content lately, but hopefully we'll be getting back to that pretty soon. What we have been doing is some direct action in mutual aid on the ground. There's a lot across the street from us that is abandoned, and it had become infested with vermin, and it had basically become a nest for vermin, and more rats were popping up, and so finally we just had to take direct action, clean it up. I was able to get some huge truckloads of mulch donated, and we spread the mulch around, and so that took a little bit of our time away from our creative endeavors and away from any marketing endeavors that we could have possibly made money on. We also have, we sat down last night and we looked at everything that we've done since moving to this at-risk community a year ago, and we realized that we'd given probably about 300 hours of pro bono work through light landscaping, through marketing, through design, just all sorts of things that we've done. I mean, and today I'm even sitting down with a neighbor to help her file for unemployment. She's been really traumatized at her job, and they fired her, and it took some convincing on my part to explain to her that you actually do qualify for unemployment when you're fired, because it's something that you, as an American, you pay into the unemployment system. So it's not free money from the government, it's not a handout, it's money that comes out of your paycheck. And that had to be explained to her over and over again, because in this community that I live in, and I noticed that this is pretty indicative of all at-risk communities, is there's a false sense of things. It's, for instance, the unemployment thing. People didn't understand that there's no shame in collecting unemployment. It's something that you pay into with your own paycheck, and your employer pays into it. That way, when your employer fires you, you have a little bit of money. You have a percentage of your income that you can draw from and live on. So there's no shame in collecting it. So this 300 hours or so of work that we have done for the community and for the various people in the community for free, the response has been mixed. Some people, I guess, felt threatened by it, so decided to, start the rumor mill about us. Some people have, attacked us outright. Some people have tried to intimidate us. But when we're talking about things that, absolutely have to be addressed immediately because our health and safety is at risk, then, you just have to do what you have to do to survive. And what's interesting about, some of the businesses that are operating here is they're operating through the financial infusion from a lending house that engages in quantitative easing and quantitative financing, which is just sort of like this global monetary algorithm that, all countries are picking up now. That's sort of this house of cards way of financializing a product. Okay, so those people that are financed, they're, to me, even though they have a really good product, and I totally support their idea, and I love them as people, I'm concerned about I'm concerned about how they received the money and the lending house that did, infuse them. So, because the process by which these markets are funded are the same process that ultimately caused the financial collapse of 2008, when all of our pensions were seized, and that money was then sent back to Wall Street, which committed those algorithms of waste, fraud, and abuse against the American people. Now, in other countries, when other financial institutions committed these horrible acts of fraud against their people, they went to jail. And what the United States did, thanks to Obama, is they gave all of those fraudsters pensions and commission checks, and they were able to go out and spend, money on lavish, external things like their 10th house and more yachts. And so, once again, it contributed to this ever increasing gap between the haves and the have-nots. And we live in fascism, which is when, a very small amount of people are treated like kings and queens, and the rest of us are treated like slaves or serfs picking at the dirt. So that's kind of where we are now. Well, that is where we are now in a financial system, and I'm concerned that the people that I really like and respect, and I like and respect their product, that they're going to find themselves in some very precarious financial situations once their loans become due, because of the algorithms in place for these lending agencies. Okay, so this particular lending agency, this particular local lending agency, I have found very little about it that I could complain about. I mean, on the surface, they seem fine. In fact, one of their things that they say is we give 50% of our income to charity. And so, obviously that's a tax write-off. And they're actually, for a lending agency, they're not like Goldman Sachs or anything. They're only worth like about $8 billion. So it's not like they're worth nearly $1 trillion like some of the bigger ones out there. So they keep it localized and they keep it small. And then they get their tax write-off. They don't have to pay taxes because they give half their money to charity. So but what these lending agencies do, and they target what's called opportunity zones, which is a description that has come up in the Trump administration of at-risk communities. So at-risk communities like mine, which has the highest concentration of Section 8 housing in the state of Pennsylvania, is considered an opportunity zone. And there's systemic and generational poverty. And also so psychologically, everyone's traumatized. I mean, everyone's coming off of or in the throes of drug addiction. There's, lots of missing teeth in my neighborhood. There's lots of children that are being nutritionally starved because the USDA has said that this community that I live in is food starved and considered a food desert. So there's no access to nutritional food for the children. So, and everybody is, in a terrible place, compared to where I came from, which is San Francisco, which is like this, everyone's thin and healthy with shiny teeth and shiny hair and access to organic food at their fingertips. And, it's affordable organic food too, and fruits and vegetables and all this stuff. It's like, why is it okay for San Francisco to have it, but not Pittsburgh? And, I'm still not understanding, because I pay a lot of taxes to live here, and yet I have permanent scars on my knees from falling on the sidewalks here that haven't been repaved in like 100 years or 50 years at least. So, I mean, I pay taxes here, so what's going on? So, there's nobody's asking these questions though, because it's been generational oppression, and then you get these infusions of money that comes in from these lending companies that prey on these opportunity zones because they feel they have no choice. And so when you're not given a choice about something, then that's not democracy, is it? So, this is the way my mind works. I mean, some people stay up late and watch Real Housewives of New York City or whatever. I stay up late and read philosophy in the financial markets, and this is what keeps me awake at night. And so, JP and I have moved here. We've been here about a year and a little more than a year now, and we've probably put in over 300 hours of donated work, whether it's marketing, graphic design, logo design, landscaping, advising people. I've got somebody coming over who, and this is the irony of everything, is we put in all this work and we get very little appreciation. In fact, we get attacked. In fact, we get slandered. In fact, we are intimidated. And so, but this particular area of Pittsburgh was once run by the mob, so this kind of mob-like behavior, I guess, reinvents itself in different ways. So we're just kind of trying to take sort of this erudite approach to the whole thing, not get offended, not get reactionary, but just kind of go, okay, well, they're acting like, 3-year-old mobsters, basically. Because, again, when you're also dealing with generational poverty, there's also this lack of understanding about how the world works. There's a lack of understanding about, our electoral process. Today's November 5th. There's a lot of public shaming. There's a lot of social media shaming. If you don't vote, then you don't have a right to complain. But in 2015, there was a Harvard study, a peer-reviewed Harvard study, was able to ascertain through incredibly detailed reporting that the United States ranks dead last in election integrity. So, we're a very corrupt society from the bottom up. And at first years ago I thought, well, maybe the corruption is just at the top. And now that I live in an area where it's very bottom, very, very bottom, no, it's corrupt down here as well. So, that's just the way it goes. But, so we're engaging in direct democracy and mutual aid, just taking a hands-on approach to some of the expedient issues, which are literally like right at our doorstep, like rats running up and down our street. We had to tackle this problem. Whereas the attitude in this sort of generational poverty and in this at-risk community is that someone else will take care of it, let's hope the problem goes away, or let's say a prayer, and that's the response that you have to a vermin infestation. That's the response that you have. And JP and I are like, how about we try something else, like pulling up the weeds, removing the trash, seeing if we can get some mulch donated, putting down solar lights so that people will have a safe and easy pathway to walk at night when they use this path to walk to the bus every day. And the response, we got zero help except for maybe 2 or 3 people that came out to help us. And some of the locals were impressed by that. So, so there's this sort of generational not understanding about the way the world works. But in all irony of ironies, as I live well below the poverty line, scraping to survive around here. And the girl that I'm helping to file for unemployment after she suffered an entire year of abuse and gaslighting by her toxic employer, he fired her, unlawfully, I might add. And I explained to her that she should file for unemployment, and she's like, okay, can you help me do that? And I said, sure. And, she's got thousands of dollars in her savings account. And, and I'm over here trying to figure out how to, feed me and JP next week, So it's like, it's a little bit frustrating because there still is that meritocracy for people, even who live in this really oppressed area. There still is a level of meritocracy, which, again, I never had access to. And neither did JP. So it's very challenging for us. And then to do all the things we've done for the community only to be attacked and slandered and lied about behind our backs, it's like we've done nothing. We've done absolutely nothing to deserve this terrible response. We just cleaned up a lot so that we could not have to live with rats. I mean, that doesn't seem like a really bad thing, but we were slandered, or we were accused of saying things, in this community that we never said. Um, and so again, we just have to take that really sort of high erudite approach to these things and continue to do what we do and not let it really affect our day-to-day lives. But that's impossible. That's absolutely impossible to do. The reality of it is that, whatever trauma is generational and systemic and endemic to this society and into this, landscape, is now they're trying to attach it to us by attacking us. They're trying to make us traumatized. They're trying to have me live in a state of trauma and unrest because they want to lie or they want to, start rumors or slander or whatever. And so your natural reaction is to be traumatized, but how we react to that, I guess, is what matters. And so I can identify, yeah, it's a little traumatizing for me. I'm not going to lie, but I can also say that I don't live in the trauma. I'm not going to, do drugs or go crazy or whatever because of their trauma, which they're trying to attach to me. And I think that is kind of where the entire United States is. Like, even the most privileged liberals that have, money flowing easily into their bank accounts and live this really, lovely, shiny life, especially in San Francisco, they're also being traumatized. They're being traumatized because they're in this constant state of, oh my God, Trump is the worst thing that ever happened to us. And so they live in a state of trauma. Not understanding that Trump is basically just, like Hillary Clinton, or he's just like anybody else. He's going to play fealty to the system that's in place, and he's just the figurehead, and he's going to say what you want to say, or he's scripted. His scripts are either to say what the people who like him want to hear, or to say what the people who don't like him want to hear. Nothing is authentic that comes from him, even though it seems authentic. And sometimes he'll let a few things slip in here and there, and to me, all it does is just highlight how crazy he is and how unstable he is and what a narcissist he is, always, reaching for the spotlight. So that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people on every end of the spectrum who are going through trauma and living in this, perpetual state of anxiety about the environment, anxiety about the future, anxiety about the economy. And if I had one thing of all those things, in the entire universe to focus on for me personally, it would be the economy. Because going back to what I originally said when I first started doing this audio to explain why we have been away from our cultural and artistic and creative platform, it goes back to the way the economy works. And the economy is not working. That's a fundamental, basic foundational truth, is that the economy is not working. It's not working at all because too much of it is going up to a very few people. And when the economy doesn't work, then you need to do radical changes. You need to change the tax base, or you need to change the inheritance tax, or you need to put, stricter regulations on the bank, on the banking industry. But instead of doing that, what the economy has decided to do, it's like, okay, we're not working. It's not working. So let's create a house of cards called quantitative easing and quantitative financing, where we fabricate stories. We go to places like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we go to these communities that are considered, food deficient. There's such generational and systemic poverty here that everybody's missing teeth. I mean, there's like drug addiction. It's the highest level of Section 8 housing in the entire state of Pennsylvania, maybe even in the entire country. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a place like that, and we're going to say that it is rife with opportunity, and that it is rife with it's a fertile ground for your product to really do well. Which is complete lunacy. It's complete lunacy. If you want your product to do really well, and your product is based on goods and services, like buying a cup of coffee for money, then you gotta go where cup of coffee and money is easily exchanged on the regular. That's not what's exchanged on the regular here in this little community that I live in. What's exchanged on the regular here is like scraping money together to buy a 40, you know, and to try to and go to the grocery store and try to make your food stamps stretch to buy like a month's worth of groceries. That's, I'm not trying to like target or put down the people that live here, but I'm saying that the systems in place that created them are why they're like this and why it's generational. And so for a lending company to say, that this is fertile ground for you is nonsensical. It flies in the face of economic theory. And so that's where the whole world is going right now. And so these are the things that have been, sort of taking up my bandwidth, my brain bandwidth anyway. And, somebody asked me once, if you had to choose from like the environment to health or the economy, what would be the one thing that you would focus on? And without hesitation, I was like, the economy. Because the economy doesn't care if you're black or LGBTQ or if you're brown or if you're white or whatever. The economy, or if you're disabled, the economy affects everyone equally, and it's affected everyone equally in terrible ways. So much so that it's not even working. So it's a non-functioning system that's happening in this country, and instead of doing the things that would make it function, like, all the things I mentioned before, like regulating the banking industry, regulating lending houses a little bit stronger, taxing the wealthy so that the money can be distributed, more into the population. Instead of doing any of those things, which are just like really superficial, really basic things, there's much more intricate ways that we could fix the economy that I'm not a financial expert. I'm not an economist, so I don't know what they are, but I know that they're there. Instead of doing any of that, what they do is they create these fake stories and fake algorithms, which are ultimately going to throw people into more debt and more dysfunction and create an even wider gap between the haves and the have-nots. And so this nonsensical, magical thinking, way that we lend money to people who have a product is really scary to me, and predatory and all this stuff. Now, the lending agency that's local here, they boast about how they give half their money to charity, when really we all know that when you give half your money to charity, it means you don't pay taxes. So they're not paying taxes. So that's what that's about. So, it's the people that I really like and respect, and I want to see them successful at their endeavors, and I want their product to thrive, are having a challenging time of it because they're in basically a wasteland. This isn't San Francisco where there's fertile soil for people to just walk in and say, I want to start something and make my first $1 million or $2 million in the first year that I'm in business. You could probably do that there, but you'd have to have a lot of startup money. You'd have to have a lot of financial backing, and a lot of people in San Francisco have rich parents who could do that for them, and and whatever else they get access to, which I never had. So that's what's going on in the world now. That economic house of cards, these sort of quantitative easing and quantitative financializing of product and vision is all over the globe now. And so 2008 was a terrible crash, but it's nothing compared to what's around the corner. And in order to justify taking your pension, in order to pay back these lending houses, because your friend who's trying to do a business that's where he has a product that's not thriving, he can't pay back his loans, so somehow those loans have to get paid back. So your pensions are going to get taken, you're going to get overtaxed. They're going to, prolong the retirement age, all that stuff to keep you working so that they can keep taxing you. All of that has to be justified. And how do we justify doing that? Well, we justify it by saying, the planet is dying off. Oh my goodness, carbon taxing people because people are emitting too much carbon in the air, and we don't have time, and oh, the planet is dying. So please, we have to save the planet. And so all of the people that, so everybody on the top once again wins and everybody on the bottom loses, and loses badly. So it's, there's another crash on the way. It's part of life. It's part of the way the system goes. And that's, and so what we're doing is we're engaging in mutual aid and direct action to try to fix the absolute problems that are right in front of us, so that we can live comfortably and also set an example for our neighbors. And also, just help our neighbors when they need it. The girl across the street needs help filling out her unemployment information, so I'm going to help her with that. That's going to take a few hours. So, things like that, having a block party and talking to your neighbors, building neighborhood associations. For when the crash comes, you need to be able to have something to land on. You need to be able to have a system in place where you can look to each other for support. And this community is incredibly dysfunctional. There's lots of like little tiny sort of Hatfield and McCoy rivalries going on that go all the way back like 100 years ago. It's kind of funny. As cultural anthropologists, we have to be amused by this. If we became invested, it would cause us a lot of pain. And this type of splintering of society is exactly what the state wants to keep you weak. When you don't have a network of people that can come together and coalesce and collectively work together to stabilize an economy, when you don't have that because everybody's bickering or people have held on to grudges for too long, or there's all sorts of weird dysfunction because of things that have happened 100 years ago, when you allow that splintering in society, that's when the bad guys win. That's when you become even more impoverished and even more unable to get back up on your feet and run your business or keep your house or pay your mortgage or whatever. So we're also trying to start a neighborhood association and a neighborhood organization so that when the next crash does come around the corner, and it's going to affect places like this that have already been decimated, it's going to affect them even worse, that there will be something to fall back on. I hope. It's difficult to get through this level of dysfunction, and we may not, and it may just be something that we go, okay, well, we've diagnosed the problem, we have the solution, it's up to them to accept the solution, and all we can do is provide them the solutions. Lately we've been doing that, and we've been getting slandered and attacked and lied about and gossiped about and all this stuff, but we just keep doing what we're doing and just, like I said, kind of floating above it and being like the cultural anthropologists in the wild who study the lions and how they interact with the zebras and all that stuff. That's how we feel in this community that we live right now. So it's one of the reasons why we haven't done a lot of creative work. We haven't done a lot of more open cultural commentary. We haven't done any cartoons lately, which we need to do. So I wanted to put that out there just to let all of our pledges know that we're thinking about them and we really appreciate them. We haven't forgotten, and we're just going to keep moving forward. Talk to you soon.